Hey everyone, Michael here with Hello Cupcake, it's me. Today is June 1st, 2022, and how are you? So last night, you oughter know, kicked butt in trivia, and we maintained our third place status in the bronze division. And if we do well one more time, we should move up in a division. But last week we had some real serious opposition. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that we can pull it off again. Uh, Also, just been kind of dealing with some low grade depression. I've had a lot of shit just dumped on my plate all of a sudden. um, Dealing with the biological egg donor, having high blood sugars and passing out, going to the hospital twice in a week, and dealing with my own personal crap, and just like, there's way too much going on right now. I honestly need just a little bit of a reprieve. But, I'm trying my best, and I'm trying not to let the depression go from a dull roar into a explosion. I don't even know how to properly phrase what I'm thinking right now, but right now it's just like a right there, and I don't want it to get any larger than that. Um, Also, trying to help other people in my life with their depression and their mental health, and trying to help friends and family through what they're going through right now and all this other stuff. I much rather try to help other people than try to help myself. And um, I find that a lot of times when I focus on other people and I don't focus on myself, that my shit starts to pile up and get bigger, heavier, and worse than what it normally would be. So I'm trying to find that happy medium of balancing everything, balancing my friends and family, balancing my day to day life, balancing just everything in between, like most of us do. Um, and trying to carb, I can never say this right, compartmentalizing things in accordance to severity. So, like, on Friday, this last Friday, I spent several hours just working in the kitchen trying to get that all taken care of. And then Saturday, I spent a couple of hours doing stuff throughout the house. Like, I took some trash out of the living room, I took some trash out of the kitchen, I did my laundry, and then, like, just trying to move forward in a progressive and positive manner. I've challenged myself to do at least one thing a day that is positive, either for myself, my house, my spirituality or creativity or whatever. And um I'm finding that that is working really well for me. So I'm going to move it up to doing at least three things a day. One for my house, or one for my health, or, one for my spirituality, creativity, or whatever. And I've been taking classes again over on Allison.com, and the class that I'm taking right now is about attitudes and behaviors. And we watched this really amazing TED Talk in class, and it was I cannot for the life of me remember the main speaker's name, but it was about Russell Peters and this guy, the main talker. The main talker was, or I'm sorry, the main talker is an African American gentleman who is a singer songwriter author, and he got in touch with Russell Peters, who was a um, Grand Wizard in the KKK. I believe that was his title. Um, and it was about how the gentleman had his secretary reach out to Russell Peters, who was the KKK member, and asked him to meet up at a hotel to do an interview. Never once giving the race or whatever of the gentleman who's writing the book. So when Russell Peters showed up with his bodyguard to this hotel room, he was obviously shocked to walk into a room with an African American man and an African American female. And his bodyguard had a sidearm. And the gentleman got up and he said, welcome, I'm so and so, I'm here to write the book, and I just want to talk to you. So instantly, these two rivals or whatever were in a neutral zone, both with a person that they trusted, and very little to no trust between each other. And the guy went on to talk in his TED Talk about how he didn't understand racism, and he wanted to understand it, and he wanted to understand the doctrinization of this Russell Peters into the KKK and all this other stuff. And he goes throughout the whole speech talking about how they sat down from one another and over the years developed a respectful friendship of one another. And he would go to Klan meetings, and Russell would come to the bar and listen to him perform his music and the boogie woogie and jazz and all that other stuff, and had been televised more than once. And one thing that Russell said that struck me was that even though we have different viewpoints, I respect him because he sat down to listen to my points, and I sat down to listen to his points. And that really struck a chord with me. And then it goes on to where the gentleman who was writing the book said, a few years later, Russell calls me up, asks to meet, and then hands me his hood and his cloak and said that he was no longer part of the Ku Klux Klan, because even though he had been raised to hate people of color and hate certain ideologies, that he now has a new open mind and a new respect for those people that he once hated. And so it was just a really great program, and I really, really enjoyed it. And the reason that it struck a chord with me with what he had said about the whole respecting issue is the fact that we as a society, as a people, as a culture, do not take time to sit down and understand, or at least listen to other people, to understand where they're coming from, to understand their point of view, and to try to connect with that person on some level. Ku Klux Klan, if you are any kind of intelligent person, you know that the Ku Klux Klan is a very, at times, dangerous organization. And especially if you are Jewish or black or like gay, lesbian, what have you, they have very strong ideologies about what is right and what is wrong. Now, is what they think right and wrong right or wrong? Who knows? In an enlightened society, we would say yes, that racism is wrong and that their viewpoints are askewed and that they are very militant and radical and on the extreme. But, you know, I try to approach everyone that I talk to at a neutral ground, and I build or I subtract from our conversation depending on where their skill level lies. If they come across as highly intelligent, I try to match their intelligence. If they come across as, for lack of a better term, street or hood, then I try to match that level for them, because I never want to try to place myself above somebody or below somebody. I always want to try to meet them head on as equal. And so this class has really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and my own preconceived judgments, notions, and prejudice. And so it's been really, really interesting just to see how in the court, like throughout the course, how I've actually had to stop and take a look inward and apply what I just learned to some of the things that I had thought and felt. And you know, we all have prejudice. We all have some kind of something in us that as soon as we see somebody or hear something or whatever, that we automatically judge them. Or say, like, every time you see a black dog, you automatically fear that because as a kid you had a negative experience with a black dog. Maybe not all dogs scare you, but black dogs in particular scare the hell out of you. For me, it's coyotes. I do not like coyotes. They scared the shit out of me. And it's because when I was little, growing up in the desert, one busted through the screen door and tried to nab me, and that just has scarred me for life. So what do I live across the street from but this huge field where coyotes like to gather, and when I hear them out there hooping and hollering, it puts me on edge and gives me almost a panic attack to the point where I have to shut all my windows and lock them, because in my childhood, like, fight or flight part of the brain, I'm scared of those coyotes jumping through the window and trying to get me. Now, none of my windows are at ground level. They're about maybe 5 feet up, but still, it's ingrained in me, and this is something that I have a fear of. So I just try to, I try to know other people's fears, so then that way I don't perpetrate them and cause more emotional damage or psychosis or whatever to happen. So, like, just looking inward on myself, that's a lot of what I'm doing with these classes, is just trying to help me better understand myself, because mental health providers in the area are almost non-existent, and I just need to have better clarity and understanding of who I am. So I'm on a soul-searching mission right now. And um, I'm learning more and more about myself daily, it seems, and that's a good thing. And what I'm not, and if it's not something that directly applies to me, it's something that I am learning so that I can help others down the road. And that's something that's just amazing. Knowledge is never a bad thing. So yeah, moving on from there, what else has just been working on getting my new to me MacBook up and going, and um, listening to a radio station that I haven't listened to since I was a kid on iTunes. I found it, and it's on iHeartRadio and tuned in and a bunch of other places, but I happened to find it on iTunes one day just playing around. It's 95.5 KLOS, and it's based out of Southern California, and it's like a rock station. And my dad used to listen to it all the time growing up, and there was a two radio personalities on there called Mark and Brian, and they had a morning talk show, and they were just freaking hilarious. And if you watched Star Wars, the the first Star Wars, I believe it was, where they fight Anakin, um, the two-headed announcer at the pod races, those are the voices of Mark and Brian. And they've done some other stuff for like The Simpsons and things like that. So really prominent characters and voice talents. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here. But please watch through, because at the end of this video is going to be all about this week's person. His name was Brandon Tina, and there was a movie created about him called Boys Don't Cry, and it featured Hilary Swank. And if you haven't seen it, I would recommend watching it after listening to this little presentation that I put together. And all the information that I got was off of Wikipedia, just to make sure that I did not fabricate anything or forget anything. So each week I'm going to make a post about a prominent LGBT community member, and I might actually be making more than one video, just like make a video series of LGBT members for Pride Month this year. So yeah, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please put them in the comment section down below, and enjoy the little video. Brandon Tina was born December 12th, 1972 in Lincoln, Nebraska to Joanne Brandon. His father died in a car accident in Lancaster County 8 months before he was born, and was raised by his mother. Tina and his older sister Tammy lived with their maternal grandmother in Lincoln before they were reclaimed by their mother when Tina was 3 years old and Tammy was 6. The family resided in the Pine Acre Mobile Home Park in northeast Lincoln. Joanne received disability checks and worked as a clerk in a woman's retail store in Lincoln to support the family. As young children, Tina and Tammy were sexually abused by their uncle for several years, and Tina sought counseling for this in 1991. Joanne remarried once from 1975 to 1980 Tina's family described him as being a tomboy since early childhood. Tina began identifying as male during adolescence and dated a female student during this period. His mother rejected his male identity and continued to refer to him as her daughter. On several occasions, Tina claimed to be intersexed. Tina and his sister attended St. Mary's Elementary School, Pius X, in Lincoln, where Tina was remembered by some as being socially awkward. During his second year, Tina rejected Christianity after he protested to a priest at Pius X regarding Christian views on abstinence and homosexuality. He also began rebelling at school by violating the dress code policy to dress in a more masculine fashion. During the first semester of his senior year, a U.S. Army recruiter visited the high school, encouraging students to enlist in the armed forces. Tina enlisted in the United States Army shortly after his 18th birthday and hoped to serve a tour of duty in Operation Desert Shield. However, he failed the written entrance exam by listing his sex as male. In December 1990, Tina went to Holiday Skate Park with his friends. Binding his breasts in order to pass as male, the 18-year-old Tina went on a date with a 13-year-old girl. He also met the girl's 14-year-old friend, Heather, and began regularly presenting himself as male. In the months nearing his high school graduation, Tina became unusually outgoing and was remembered by classmates as the class clown. Tina also began skipping school and receiving failing grades and was expelled from Pius X High School in June of 91, 3 days before high school graduation. In the summer of 1991, Tina began his first major relationship with Heather. Shortly after, Tina was first employed as a gas station attendant in an attempt to purchase a trailer home for himself and his girlfriend. His mother, however, did not approve of the relationship and convinced her daughter to follow Tina in order to find out whether Tina's relationship with Heather was platonic or sexual. In January 1992, Tina underwent a psychiatric evaluation which concluded that Tina was suffering from severe sexual identity crisis. He was later taken to Lancaster County Crisis Center to ensure that he was not suicidal. He was released from the center 3 days later and began attending therapy sessions, sometimes accompanied by his mother or sister. He was reluctant to discuss his sexuality during these sessions, but eventually revealed that he had been raped. The counseling sessions ended 2 weeks later. In 1993, after some legal trouble, Tina moved to Falls City region of Richardson County, Nebraska, where he presented as a man. He became friends with several local residents after moving into the home of Lisa Lambert. Tina began dating Lambert's friend, 18-year-old Lana Tisdale, and began associating with ex-convicts John L. Lauder, born May 31st, 1991, and Marvin Thomas, or Tom Neeson, born October 22nd, 1971. On December 19th, 1993, Tina was arrested for forging checks. Tisdale used the money from her father to pay Tina's bail. Because Tina was in the female section of the jail, Tisdale learned that he was transgender. When Tisdale later questioned Tina about his gender, he told her he was a hermaphrodite pursuing a sex change operation, and they continued dating. In a lawsuit regarding the film adaptation Boys Don't Cry, this was disputed by Tisdale. Tina's arrest was posted in the local newspaper under his birth name, and thereupon his acquaintances learned that he was assigned female at birth. During a Christmas Eve party, Neeson and Lauder grabbed Tina and forced him to remove his pants, proving to Tisdale that Tina had a vulva. Tisdale looked only when forced to and said nothing. Lauder and Neeson later assaulted Tina and forced him into a car. They drove to an area by a meatpacking plant in Richardson County where they assaulted and gang raped him. They then returned to Neeson's home where Tina was ordered to take a shower. Tina escaped from Neeson's bathroom by climbing out of the window and went to Tisdale's house. He was convinced by Tisdale to file a police report, though Neeson and Lauder had warned Tina not to tell the police about the gang rape, or they would silence him permanently. Tina also went to the emergency room where a standard rape kit was assembled, but later lost. Sheriff Charles B. Locks questioned Tina about the rape. Reportedly, he seemed especially interested in Tina's transgender status, to the point that Tina found the questions rude and unnecessary, and refused to answer. Neeson and Lauder later learned of the report, and they began to search for Tina. They didn't know where to find him, and 3 days later, the police questioned them. Sheriff Laux declined to have them arrested because what kind of person was she? The first few times we arrested her, she was putting herself off as a guy. Around 1 a.m. on December 31st, 1993, Neeson and Lauder drove to Lambert's house and broke in. They found Lambert in bed and demanded to know where Tina was. Lambert refused to tell them. Neeson searched and found Tina under the bed. The men asked Lambert if there was anyone else in the house, and she replied that Philip Devine, who at the time was dating Tisdale's sister, was staying with her. They shot and killed Devine, Lambert, and Tina in front of Lambert's toddler. Neeson later testified in court that he noticed that Tina was twitching and asked Lauder for a knife, with which Neeson stabbed Tina in the chest to ensure that he was dead. Neeson and Lauder then left, later being arrested and charged with murder. Tina is buried in Lincoln Memorial Cemetery in Lincoln, Nebraska. His headstone inscribed with his birth name and the epitaph, daughter, sister, friend. Neeson accused Lauder of committing the murders in exchange for a reduced sentence. Neeson admitted to being an accessory to rape and murder. Neeson testified against Lauder and was sentenced to life in prison. Lauder died, denying the charge of Neeson's testimony, and his testimony was discredited. The jury found Lauder guilty of murder, and he was sentenced to death. Lauder and Neeson both appealed their convictions. In September 2007, Neeson recanted his testimony against Lauder. He claimed that he was the only one to shoot Tina, and that Lauder had not committed the murders. In 2009, Lauder's appeal using Neeson's new testimony to assert a claim of innocence was rejected by the Nebraska Supreme Court, which held that since even under Neeson's revised testimony, both Lauder and Neeson were involved in the murder, the specific identity of the shooter was legally irrelevant. In August 2011, a 3-judge panel on the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeal rejected John Lauder's appeal in a split decision. In October 2011, the 8th Circuit rejected Lauder's request for a rehearing by the panel, or the full 8th Circuit en bloc. Lauder next petitioned the Supreme Court of the United States for a review of his case. The Supreme Court denied the review and denied to review Lauder's case, denying his petition for writ of certiorari on March 19th, 2012, and a further petition for rehearing on April 23rd, 2012, leaving his conviction to stand. On January 22nd, 2018, Lauder was denied a third appeal by the U.S. Supreme Courts. The movie Boys Don't Cry with Hilary Swank is a movie all about Brandon Tina's life, and it's something that I urge each and every one of you to watch.